Welcome everybody to another one of our student ministry videos. This week we're still in our origin story series, and the theme of this series is just kind of all about superheroes. Because I think we picture superheroes as these people with superpowers who are saving the world, but I think you and I need to realize that we can be heroes as well just by following Jesus and making a difference in this world. So when we think about superheroes, what's a superhero's main job? Is it to battle strangely dressed villains? Is it to just show off their powers? Is it to accidentally destroy a lot of buildings and stuff? I think superheroes do all of those things quite often, but in movies and stuff. But if we're going to name the one thing that every superhero has in common as far as their job, I would say superheroes help people. And you know what? Our job is to help people too. But while doing their best to save the world, um, have you ever noticed in all these popular superhero movies how much damage gets caused? Buildings get destroyed, bridges collapse, cars get smashed. But that's just kind of normal. That's a lot of destruction when we think about it. And Jesus, he did in fact save the entire world, but that's not all he did. And that's why our conversation over this series is so important because we're focusing on the things Jesus did while he was here on earth. And one of those things is Jesus showed like pretty much heroic love and kindness and care to specific people. And then he told us to do the same. There's a really neat story that we're going to talk about in the Gospel of John, chapter 13. We're not going to read it, but if you want to, it's in verses 1 through 17. And in this story, Jesus is sitting down for dinner with his disciples, and he washes their feet. And it takes a little bit of convincing to do this. But and I'll explain why, because this moment was revolutionary and just different for two main reasons. The first is that the disciples' feet, they were disgusting. They didn't really wear closed-toed shoes like we did today. There was no Nike or anything. And they did a lot of walking. And that part of the world, there's a lot of dust, dirt, and to be gross, there was probably a lot of animal droppings. And so it's not very sanitary. Their feet were probably really gross. So that's one reason is different. But also, Jesus wasn't just a friend serving another friend. Jesus was their respected and honored rabbi or teacher or mentor. He was their leader. And so for Jesus to take on the role of the servant and wash the disciples' feet, that would have been embarrassing, uncomfortable, and frankly, in that culture, it would have been wrong. And I think it should make us question the things that we can do that would be embarrassing or uncomfortable or looked at by some people as wrong, when in reality we're making a difference and we're modeling how Jesus served and loved. But washing the disciples' feet was Jesus's way of caring for them. It was his way of serving them and teaching them something very important. Even before like his greatest act of selflessness, dying on the cross, Jesus modeled love on this smaller scale by washing the disciples' feet. There was no crowd, there was no fanfare or anything, there was no declaration. He just washed their feet. No, this is not the most exciting story in the Bible. This is not the most noteworthy or memorized or anything like that. But it is a really powerful picture of how Jesus loved his disciples and how he is calling us to love other people. That same night, Jesus said something else to his disciples. In John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. And here's what he said. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Jesus, who, our hero, that's kind of the point of this series, is that Jesus kind of models what it looks like to actually be a hero. He taught love and care for others, but he modeled it too. Jesus spoke these words knowing exactly what was about to happen to him. He was going to be falsely accused, arrested, and murdered. And he was going to do it all out of love for ordinary people like you and me. But for Jesus, these words to his disciples were not an empty command. When he's saying love as I have loved you, it means something. It means that not only the huge acts of sacrifice, like dying on our behalf, but he was also talking about like washing dirty feet. For Jesus, like I said, these weren't empty words. Now, we may never have to literally lay down our life for our friends or for anyone, but we can be heroic when we love and we serve other people just like Jesus did. Because God's decision to love us sacrificially reminds us that we have to love unconditionally. Then the love that we're talking about is not just buying gifts or doing simple tasks for people. This love is deeper than that. It's not about doing something nice for someone so that you get something in return. It's sacrificial. Because Jesus didn't care for people to be flashy or to make a scene or to show off his power. His care for people was because he loved them. He was showing the depth of his love. And in the same way that Jesus heroically cared for the people right in front of us, he tells us to do the same. Because heroes care for the people right in front of them. So what does this look like for you and me? How can we serve people without an agenda? How can we do things not just to film it and put it on social media, but to actually make a difference? Are we supposed to wash our friends' feet just like Jesus? That'd be pretty gross. But just think about the places that you go to frequently. Maybe it's church or even your house, a friend's house. Maybe it's your school or your job, or maybe it's a sport or their activity, band, anything like that. Think about the places that you go to often. These ordinary places are filled with opportunities to care for others in heroic ways, especially people who don't yet know who Jesus is and don't have a relationship with him. And so it's easy to find opportunities wherever you are by just being aware of the people that you can see, by being aware of the needs that surround you. So many of the stories in Jesus' ministry that we read about in the Gospels is Jesus walking and coming across the person. Now, Jesus knew that he would come across that person wherever it was and whoever he was meeting. And I guarantee he gives us opportunities like that as well, that we can show his love to others. We can be heroes, just like Jesus was. And so Jesus once asked his disciples, he said, "Don't you have eyes to see? Don't you have ears to hear?" And when we overlook the needs of people who are right in front of us, or when we just miss them, I wonder if Jesus is asking us that same question. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Why are you not noticing the people who are in need? And so if we want to do a better job of caring for the people right in front of us, there are 4 words that we're going to talk about today. The first is awareness. I said we have to be aware of the people that we can see, but that's the first step, is to be aware of people and their needs. And this takes effort. And just maybe an example, maybe there's a group of people and they're talking and someone feels left out. Someone's maybe not even a part of the group. What if you noticed and you cared for that person? The next word is listening. If we want to care for the people right in front of us, then we have to actively listen to the things that they're saying so we can know what their needs are, how to help them, what's going on in their life. Maybe in a small group that you're in, there's a couple people who are talking a lot, but there's one person who's just not getting involved, who's just kind of shy and being talked over. What if you decided to quiet the others and encourage this person to speak? The next word is interpretation. If we want to care for the people in front of us, we have to think about how our words are going to be interpreted. And not only about what we mean by the words that we say, but the words that we're actually saying. In this world that we live in, I think we are so used to having our own opinion and trying to push that on other people and always assuming we're right. But what if, going along with the first 2, awareness and listening, we have to think through how our words affect other people. Whether that's on social media or in person, our words are not in a vacuum. We're talking to other human beings who are made in the image of God. And how are the words that you are saying impacting them? How are they going to be interpreted? Maybe it's because they're a different gender or a different race or just from a different family. How are they going to interpret what you say? How is that going to represent Jesus? Those are things that we have to think of. The last word is sensitivity. And now, if we want to care for the people right in front of us, we have to be sensitive to what's going on in their lives. Because there are experiences and perspectives that we can't understand. Now, there are people who have been through lots of different things, and people who have different experiences and different opinions because of what they've been through. And we have to be respectful of that. Just like Jesus said, they're going to know that you're my disciples by your love. Now, if someone looked at your life, would they know that you're a disciple of Jesus by your love? Are you aware of people's needs and willing to be a hero and help them? Do you listen to people and help other people get involved? Are you careful about how your words are interpreted? Are you sensitive to what other people have experienced and try to listen to their perspectives? We need to be thinking about those things when we're interacting with others. Because like we said, we don't have to be a superhero and save the whole world. We just have to be a hero and make a difference by loving others the way Jesus did. Sometimes the most heroic things we can do are the smallest but most meaningful things. And that sounds cliche, but if you go around and you ask people who have been in church a long time how they got involved in church, it's not from a superhero. It's not because someone saved the world. But it's because they experienced Jesus through the love of someone else. And usually that's through a small, simple act. We don't have to have superpowers, but we do need to be willing to care for others just like Jesus cared for us. If Jesus was willing to wash the feet of the disciples, what are you willing to do for those right in front of you? This could be your parents. This could be your friends, neighbors. This could be strangers at a grocery store you go to all the time. There are no conditions. There are no requirements as far as who this is. God says this new commandment is to love one another. That applies to everyone, no matter if they agree with all your opinions, no matter if they look just like you, no matter if they believe in Jesus or not. Now, it's important that we care for people because heroes care for the people right in front of them. I'm not asking you to have superhero powers and go off and save the world or go to a different country and do all these amazing things. This week, who are you going to heroically care for right in front of you? And again, it's important that we care for people as we want to be obedient to what Jesus taught and what he commands us, loving others and loving justice. But we're not able to do that on our own. Just like our salvation can only come through Jesus, we'll only be able to love others when we're connected to God. Jesus says that he is the vine and we are the branches. And what he means by that is without the vine, there are no branches. The branches only grow because they're connected to the vine. If we want to live out these things, seeking justice, loving people, and trying to see a difference in the world, it's only going to be because we're connected to him. Following Jesus isn't, it's not about what you wear to church or if you watched all of the lessons in a month or how many rules you can follow or doing your best to earn God's love. It's about loving God and loving others as a response to the overwhelming knowledge that God loves you even though that you're a sinner. Loving others means loving justice and serving others just like Jesus did. Now, who can you serve right in front of you? And how are you spreading the good news of Jesus to those you interact with? Because heroes care for the people right in front of them.